Although Tacitus in Germania, chapter 9, tells us the Germans, however, do not consider it consistent with the grandeur of celestial beings to confine the gods within walls, or to liken them to the form of any human countenance. They consecrate woods and groves, and they apply the names of deities to the abstraction which they see only in spiritual worship. It is also true that in many books of old we find the description of the temple of Uppsala, statues of Thor, Odin and Frey, of people accused of keeping a carved image of Thor in their purse and taking it out to worship in secret, of people keeping a small silver image of Frey that they carried with them, of temple pillars carved with gods which seem to have been regarded as not being entirely lifeless, of a giant statue of Thor that gets fed with bread and meat, of the Aska pendant, which might be a devotional amulet picturing either Freyja or Frigg. You see, the altar is the representation of the personal relationship we have with the gods. And some people do choose to place statues of the gods on it. But sometimes all those statues, tools, objects seem to look at us from our altars like empty shells, and it is difficult to even feel they can be representative of the god, goddess we are trying to worship. I have always thought the whole point of statues is focus. Handling a magical item like a god, goddess statue is not enough to give that item a sense that something is extraordinary about it. A statue or a tool is not the deity in itself. It is the focus on the power of the god or tool expanding out of it to you, and it is your focus expanding from you back to the god or tool. Reality is like every tool in sorcery. Also statues and figurines of the gods need us to form a bond with them before their magical properties can be used in the worshipping of the gods. We often invest huge amounts of money on altar statues and figurines, and we end up with a lot of statuary. But once they're there, they become empty embellishments, and we forget magic and witchcraft are an active craft aiming at sensing and shaping the subtle. We forget that pretty much everything in sorcery needs attunement and activation, where these statues become what they are meant to be, conduits of energy. The attunement is the physical time of rest you are going to spend with the item in order to feel its properties and gain an intuitive understanding of how to activate any magical properties of the item itself. The activation instead is the charging process, a process in which we seal the sorcery into the statue or tool. In the charging process, the statue gets smeared with the main elements the statue is representative of. These elements, I call them fragments, and they allow you to seal the sorcery into the statue or tool. Sealing is a skill that I consider the very foundation of Norse sorcery. For example, in my very little array of Norse and Sami statues, among others, I treasure an old reindeer figurine adopted from a flea market in Finnmark, which is representative of the Gabba, the great white reindeer spirit, and a statue of Frey, which is a replica of the Rellinge statuette. discovered in Sweden in 1904 and dated from the Viking Age around the 11th century. I regularly charge these items with the elements they are representative of. I smear the tin reindeer statue with Icelandic moss and soil from the Vidda, the tundra for example, and the statue of Frøy with antler powder or juniper. Once the elements have activated the vessel and sealed the sorcery into the vessel, you will need to add fuel to it. And that is what gives it its power. The more valuable the fuel, whether it is blood, body fluids, the more powerful the vessel of worship. My favorite form of fuel is sound. I would use the sound of bells or the sound of my reindeer skin drum to fuel my reindeer tin statue, or antler clicks to fuel Frøy statue. In doing so, you are not activating the Gabba or Frøy, you are activating the vessel to behave as a conduit of energy and a sacred place of focus. As long as you keep your sorcery active and alive, magic will pulsate within and without you in the tools and vessels you choose to accompany you on your path. We are more powerful than we can comprehend, and this is a big responsibility. You see, in an era where the Viking, the Norse, the Sami past have been popularized in all sorts of possible and impossible contexts, it is not about heading out to worship a rock or what tools, statues, objects, clothes you are taking to that rock. It is all about how long have you been on that rock.